Day 60 quarantine watch list. This is everything that I watched in the past 30 days since the last edition of the quarantine watch list. I'm trying to do this more often, maybe once every 20 days or 10 days, but we'll see. This is not a long one, so let's just get to it. I started off with The Killing of a Sacred Deer. This insane movie that it makes you so uncomfortable, and it's not making obvious choices, and it's making a lot of really curious choices in my opinion, and you get this godlike almost experience watching this movie. Everything from the cinematography and editing and how it was shot and whatnot. I'm not gonna grade it, but it's worth watching. I just remember when it first came out, back when I was still watching trailers. This trailer just annoyed the fuck out of me the more I watch it, and that's the embodiment of the entire movie. It's super strange. And then I watched Silver Lining Playbook. The performances are all really good. I really love the dialogue here, that the quick, snappy editing is really aggressive, and it's really self-aware at the same time. So I would recommend checking it out. It's really real. It captured the realism really well. And then I watched The Theory of Everything. I thought this was an award-winning, this masterpiece films that I've never seen before. It was okay. The directing and the cinematography, I would say, is a little bit too bland, but the performances and the editing make up for that, so I guess that cancel out. The score, even, it's a little bit underwhelming too, especially from Johan Johansson, so I don't think it's that good. And then I watched Undone, this show from Amazon, and the rotoscoping just looks amazing. It is so awesome to see how far we've come when it comes to that technology, when it comes to, rotoscoping and animations and whatnot. Even the performances, like, on top of that, it's super good. Even though they left on a really fucked up note, it's like, why would you end it at that point? But we'll see in the next season. And then I watched The Fog from 1980s. It was okay. It was pretty well directed. There's some good scares in it. The characters, I think, can be fleshed out a little bit more because it leads to fleshing out the town as a character a little bit better. So you feel for these people a little bit more when you flesh the town out a little bit, because watching this, it feels like the characters within the town feel so disconnected. I don't know. And then I watched A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. This is a movie that I've been wanting to watch for a long time. The pacing does drag a little bit, to be real with you, but it is a beautiful looking movie with some wonderful moments here and there. It's not exactly subtle as I imagined it would be though, but I think it is a really interesting and really innovative look and approach to this type of material, and I think you should go check it out. And then I watched RE-ANIMATOR from 1985. It was incredibly awesome. It's not fucking awesome, but it's incredibly awesome, extremely gory and entertaining, very 80s. I just love 80s horror with practical effects, and all of them have similar themes. This is really good. And then I watched Emelie on Netflix. I do like the arc of the oldest son, and think that's as far as it gets. The finale was fine, but so not well earned. It's just such a petty ending. I'm gonna leave it at that. And then I went on an Agnes Varda binge. I watched all of Agnes Varda's films, at least most of them. There are only a few that I haven't because I couldn't find it anywhere. So I watched Pointe-Courte from 1955. It was really atmospheric. It was the front runner for the French New Wave, and I really loved it. And then I watched Happiness from 1965. And then Lion's Love is this really weird, extremely experimental meta film about a film. I don't even know. One sings, the other doesn't comes next. I think it can be a little bit shorter because the pacing dragged a little bit, but altogether it's really strong. And then I watched Documenteur from 1980. Probably my least favorite Agnes Varda film, I think. And then I watched Vagabond. It is insane. Great performance, great character piece that knows exactly what to show and what not to show. It has such a good approach to story and characters. And then I watched Murals from 1980s. It was okay. It's not my favorite. I know a lot of people loved it. Personally, I just didn't care as much, I think, comparing to other Agnes Varda's films. And then The Creature from 1966, a lot of red. The pacing is a little bit slow, especially in the second half. Just a lot of red. And then I watched Faces Places from 2017. It just, the further it went on, the better it got, especially like the ending. And then I watched The Gleaners and I from 2000. Really good. And then I watched The World of Jacques Demy from 1995. I know I'm just basically running down all of Agnes Varda film. Let me just get this out of the way. Probably a spotlight in the future. Okay, and then I watched this thing from 1976. I still don't know how to pronounce it. It's this really good love letter to the local streets, the shop, and the people within. And it's just super heartfelt. The editing, the endings, it's just such a personal documentary for her. I really like it. And then I watched her last film, Varda by Agnes from 2019. It is her last film. Again, it is a self-reflection of all the work she has done. Probably the best film she could have left with, even though she probably didn't intend it to. I would recommend watching it last because it covers a lot of films that she's done before. And then I watched The Beaches of Agnes. Is another good reflection of her work, and I think she intended this one to be her last, but then, you know, a lot of films came afterwards. But this movie is just a little bit less focused than Varda by Agnes. That's why I liked it a little bit less. Still, not bad. And then I watched Jane B by Agnes V. Really hypnotizing, always interesting. I feel like the last 20 minutes is a little bit extra, and it's probably the most beautiful documentary she has ever made, probably, and a really good character portrait as well. And then I watched Jacquot. Is basically a letter to her husband and his childhood, and there are a lot of things in it that made me rejoice and remind me of myself. And then I watched Kung Fu Master. It has a really poetic ending, which is what keeps it above water. So that's conclude, I guess, the Agnes Varda binge. In between, I watched What's Up Doc from 1972. It just gets funnier and funnier as it progresses. I think it has gotta be one of the greatest car chase scenes I've ever seen. I know it's a homage, but it is hilarious. And then I watched some Zemeckis film that I've been saving up for another occasion, but you know, whatever, it is what it is. So I finally watched Who Framed Roger Rabbit in its entirety for the first time. It looks incredible. I think the animation, especially interacting with real life and how they painted the shadows, is super impressive, and I love the way Zemeckis used hidden exposition to tell the story, and it's insane. And then I watched Romancing the Stone next. It knows what it is, you know, it's fun, it's funny, it's exciting. Probably my least favorite Alan Silvestri I've heard so far, probably, but I think it's a good time. Go check this one out. And then I watched The Conversation by Coppola from 1974. This is another movie that I've been saving up for some reason, but it is always intriguing, and it has gotta be one of the most intriguing character ever put to screen, at least I've ever seen. And just the ending shot, the ending shot, literally the last shot, ruined me. This reminded me of The Tale from 2 years ago, where I feel like I've been punched in the face and I can't get up. This one is worse. And then I watched Black Girl from 1966. I think it's beautifully shot. It represents an important part of history, and that's all I'm gonna leave it. Other than that, I thought it was okay. And then I watched Beetlejuice for the first time. Tim Burton's most Caligari films I've seen so far. It's just funny, you know, the structure, the writing kind of gets put in the background, which is not the strongest part of the film, but I think it's healthy, and that's all I gotta say. And then I watched Steve Jobs, the 2015 version. I have no idea why they made two Jobs movies back to back. It's like, I know it's not from the same filmmaker. It's like, what? Why? It is a really condensed look of this man's ups and downs. When it ended, though, I was like, I was looking around, even nobody was around me. I was like, it ended? I watched this movie mainly because of the Sorkin dialogue, and it's probably the best I've seen from my memory. That is, I would actually go on a limb and say I kind of think Danny Boyle kind of ruined the movie a little bit for me. Just some of the choices he made that I'm not the biggest fan of, but the Sorkin script is great. And then I watched Perfect Stranger. It is a Spanish film from 2017. I know there's a lot of shit ton of versions out there, but this one is a 2017 Spanish version. I was gonna give it a 4, but the ending hit, and it ruined me. Like, fuck this movie. I feel betrayed. I feel cheated. It was going so well. The blocking of the characters, the cinematography, the dialogue, and the editing, everything was going so well, and that ending just fuck this movie. And then I watched The Curious of Benjamin Button. This is the last Fincher film I have not watched. I would say the writing is the weakest link here, especially the dialogue is fairly dull and flat. At least I wasn't bored for a moment, so I think that's probably the best way I can put it. The cinematography is, of course, great. Not among my favorite Fincher for sure. And then I watched The Night Eats the World, which came out 2 or 3 years ago, I believe. I was planning on watching that when it came out, but I just never got to it. While I appreciate the attempts, what this movie is trying to do, which few of them really worked, it is one without much substance. I feel like the writer is disrespecting the audience. I feel kind of offended watching this movie. But besides all that, I think the highlight of this movie is some nerve-wracking visuals and set pieces. And then I watched Three Faces, an Iranian film came out last year, which I was going to watch, but I just never got to it. It is extremely grounded filmmaking with acting so good. I swear to God, I thought I was watching a documentary in the first, 3 minutes. It's incredibly shot, most of them in great depth of field and on location in this rural area. And it fleshes out the story so well. Again, the acting, especially from our main lead, is so good I thought it was a documentary. And then I watched Poltergeist in its entirety for the first time from 1982, the original one. Got a little bit too self-indulgent, I have to say, but the impact on cinema is everlasting and undeniable. It is beautifully shot. That dolly zoom is still one of the best shots I've ever seen to this day. At least it's not called The Poltergeist, because that would just ruin the entire title and the entire movie. It will sound so shitty. And then I ended the 60 days with The Blot from 1988, and I think this is a really good example of character introductions, weaving and defying of expectations. I think it was terrific. I don't know why it's not as popular as other 80s horror movie like The Thing and Poltergeist and whatnot. I think this one is just as good. So thank you so much for watching this edition of the Quarantine Watch List, and I'll see you next time. Bye.